Hello makers and welcome back to Spectiva Studios. It's really nice to have you here. Now as an artist, one of the things you discover is that at times you have to wear different hats. One of those hats is almost being a research scientist, where you come up with an idea, but then you have to see if that idea is feasible, right? I have a theory, but can this actually do what I want it to do? So a while back, I was playing around with this idea of working with dried poured paint. And I wanted to see if I could create something that I could use as an element in future art projects. Let me share what I'm talking about with you right here. So on my table here in front of you, you'll see I have these little, and we'll drill in here on this, let's zoom in. We have these tiny little pieces of dried paint, and they're actually two different colors. So we have, in this case, we have a yellow tip, and then the rest of it is purple. And it's just basically a hollowed out little cup that I created by pouring paint into a mold, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But I can create all these different color combinations between these different two colors, and when you combine them together it creates a really eye-splashing effect. I think it's really very cool with all the colors blending together, and it's just a little spot of color overall. So I thought today I'd revisit this idea and work with you and show you how I did this, and maybe give you some ideas for your own future projects. So to begin with, the magic ingredient in this is it's this. It's actually a chocolate making silicone mold. That's right. So you would pour little bits of chocolate or fillers in here to make these kind of little gumdroppy things, if you would. Kind of a dome-shaped thing, and then you could enrobe them in chocolate or do whatever you want. And this was the foundation for what I was working in. Now, my process is my process. Again, I've never really seen anybody do anything like this, so I'm not sure if there's a better way to do it or a not better way. We'll discover it along the way. But what I've discovered is that when you're working with paint, especially if I'm trying to create something that's going to allow me to have a colored point and then the rest of it's going to be a separate color, I have to work with here by putting drops of color into the bottom of each one of these molds, and then at some point in the not too distant future, and covering it with another color of paint. Now, one of the things I've also discovered is working with paint and getting it to go one drop at a time is a lot more challenging than you might think it is. So what I'm working with here is an eyedropper. Yeah, a standard eyedropper, and I find this works pretty well for what I need to do. It allows me to control the paint and get some things where I need to go. And then to fill it in, I found that using a syringe, this is without a needle of course, but it's a 20 millimeter syringe that I can draw paint into, and it allows me to very easily inject paint into the mold. So let's see if we can make this happen. And again, I'm not really thinking about any possible major color combinations here, but let's see what we got here. I'm going to go into my paints. I've got just a stupidly bright pink color here. Let's try this one here. Get that shaken up a little bit, and let's pop into it. Now what I'd like to do with this paint is get it into my eyedropper. I will say that sometimes you have to be very careful. If it's a heavy body paint, more of a paste than it is a liquid, you're going to have some real problems drawing that up. And so you might need to use something like liquid medium. Yes, our favorite thing. It's basically pigment-free paint, but it allows us to mix it with our heavier bodied paint and make it a little bit thinner so we can work with it. Now we don't want to make it too thin. We want it to make it viscous to a point of like honey or maybe maple syrup, but something that's going to, you know, stay where we put it to a certain degree. So I'm going to go in here and let me just get my eyedropper in here and see if I can draw a little bit up, and I was able to. So we have some pink in the eyedropper now. And what I want to do now is I'm just going to come in here and I'll try to control this one drop at a time. And I'm going to put a drop at the bottom of these molds. There we go, give it a squeeze. And again, not all of these are going to turn out to be perfect. It will turn out. Some of them will be a little bit more what we call a learning experience. Let's see if I can get some in there. It will stay where I want to put it. There we go. And again, a little too thick is going to be a problem for us in some cases. Let me see if I can get some more in here. That might work. And I'm going to patiently just go in here and I'm going to just put a little drop of paint at the bottom of each one of these molds. Like I said, some of these are going to be rejects along the way. We already know that, but we'll learn along the way. Now, another thing I might recommend that you do when you're working with this just to keep the paint manageable is, especially if I'm dipping my paint into a container, I'm going to end up with paint on the outside of the dropper, and that makes it a little bit more challenging. So if I use something like a tissue paper or something to be able to wipe that off, it's going to make it a little bit just easier for me to control where my paint goes and not And I don't want it to go everywhere. That's what I'm trying to avoid here. So let me go, there we go. It's a little cleaner there. We'll put a dip at the bottom of each of our mold elements here. Now, by the way, also one of the things you might consider doing, it depends on the paint you have and how thin it is you might find a small squeezable bottle. So I took some red and I put it into this bottle here. And again, it just gives me a nice tip that I can work with here if I want to be able to direct my paint one drop at a time. So if I want to come in here and say, let's get some red in here. There we go, there's some red. And you know, it's a patience activity, to be honest. It's the kind of thing we can do relatively fast, but we want to make sure we're accurate as possible when we do it. That's my first color. What I want to be able to do is I want to be able to provide a second color. So what I'm working with, as I mentioned, is I'm working with these 20 millimeter syringes. And these are fairly large. I can get a fair amount of paint into here. And again, these are the kind of things that you could use once if you wanted to. I don't recommend it. If you can get more use out of that, that's a fantastic thing. Oftentimes, now the ones I bought, they come in a sterile package because these are often used for medical purposes. I'm not going to use them for medical purposes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, you know what, let's use this bright green color as kind of our topping color, at least a little bit. And what I want to do now is I'm going to position my syringe into the paint and then very slowly try to draw it up. And I may need to get a little bit of suction in there. And draw. And again, I don't need to fill the entire thing up for what I'm doing, but I want to be able to get something I can work with. And then it's a matter of just coming in and covering up the paint I've already put in each one of these areas. Again, a little bit of patience, and we'll get some successes out of here. Now what's going to happen over time is that as this paint dries, it's going to leave a bit more of a hollow, if you will. It's going to dry out hollow, and so instead of having a solid mound, if you will, when this is done, you're going to actually have a shell that's going to look like the pieces that we were playing with before. Now what I will do is I will have to wait for this to dry. And so in this, again, I want to show you as an example how to do it. I already have some that have already been created, which I will be working with. But what I want to do is wait for this to dry. And so tomorrow or sometime in a few days when I get an opportunity, I'm going to come back to this. We're going to peel them out of the mold, and I'm going to show you how we can take these different colors and create an interesting and really unique piece of artwork with it. So come on back. If for you, it would just be a moment. For me, it might be a little longer than that. I'll see you very soon. Okay, welcome back. Now it's been a few days. We've given our paint time to dry, and as you can see, it's all sunk in. So these what was once full are now hollows, and it's relatively easy to get out of the silicone molds. You just come in here and pop it out, and there we are. Now, like I said, not all of them are going to be perfect renditions of what we're trying to do, but with enough averaging, it might get things that are going to look a little bit better and work the way we need them to. And I'm also trying to make sure that nothing in here is still too wet to handle. But it's giving us an opportunity to get the pieces we want. Now, let me just move this out of the way. What I have here is a gridded square, and I created 1-inch grids on here. And what I want to be able to do is just use these pieces and place them in various incarnations around my gridded piece. And I also have here a collection of previous pours, if you will, of things that I've created. And it's an opportunity, really, to just kind of fill these in. There are 204 spaces in here. I want to fill all of them. Now the ultimate goal is really just to create an interesting combination of colors. Most of these are relatively the same shape. Some of them are a little bit different than others. But an opportunity to come in here and just find a way to pull these different colors together. And again, what I'm trying to do is create a full grid here, so we really have something that looks almost like I don't know, blinking lights, candies, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what I'm expecting as a result of this. So I'm going to spend a few minutes organizing and getting all my pieces in here. And then when we come back, I'm going to show you how we're going to glue them down so they stay put, and then we'll finish things up. So I'll be back in just a moment. All right, welcome back. So we've had an opportunity to lay things out a little bit here. And again, there's no right answer for anything we're doing. I'm really trying to do a blend of different types of colors so that we have good contrast. That's really my objective here. And so by using these different pieces, and again, they're somewhat varying different shades of colors, and some of them are even a little bit interesting shapes. But this is what we're working with here, and I've laid it out. Again, it looks good in my grid. Now what I need to do is make sure that these things are going to stay where I put them. So how are we going to do this? Well, there's no definitive way to do this. What I'm going to be using is just a standard, easy purple acetate glue. So this is going to be something that we can use. The purple glue, like the glue sticks, just shows you where the wet glue is, and when it dries, it turns clear. I'm going to try and make sure I don't get any glue on anything here. But once again, what I'm really striving to do here is to make this as uniform and interesting as possible. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one of these pieces, and again, it is a hollow at this point because it's dried out, and I'm going to simply come in here and fill it with some glue. So let's squeeze some glue into there. And I'm not going to necessarily fill it all the way to the top, but I'm going to get a serious amount of glue in there, and then it's going to be an opportunity to place it down in the center of the grid square that I have in here. And again, I want to just place it where I think it should go. And I'm going to let gravity do a little bit of the work for me here by pulling that glue down. And again, I'm hoping to get these in here as secure as possible. If for some reason that doesn't really work, again, I can always come in and get a little bit more glue in there. Let me just get something so we have something sticking down. That'll be a plus. There we go. And put that right in the middle there. And there we are. So there we do. Now, I only have to do that 203 more times. That's going to be the objective of this. Again, you don't need to watch somebody glue stuff down a whole bunch of times, but again, with just some simple school glue, will work out nicely for what we need to do. And the next thing to do is when I get done here is I'm going to go in and use my erasing tools to clean up this line. And again, by the way, just one of the things I'll share with you from a layout standpoint is that when I laid this out, I worked with 3 inches here at the top and the left and right side. And just to differentiate the top and the bottom, this has 4 inches on it at the bottom. So that's the objective. And again, if I glue these guys down, get rid of the lines, I think it's going to be an interesting piece. And that, again, is the objective of this whole exercise, is to create something that's kind of fun and interesting to look at. This one's probably going to have to be put in a frame without any glass because it is sticking out at least 1/4 of an inch in some cases here. But again, the relief is one of the things that's going to make this a very unique piece indeed. Anyway, that's what I have for you this week. I hope this was fun for you. And if you like what we did here today, by the way, we drop a video every single week. We'd love you to be part of our growing family. So hit that subscribe button. And if you could do me a favor and hit that like button as well, it allows YouTube to share our video with more people who are interested in abstract art and the creation and exploration. And we like to be able to do that and get the word out there. Anyway, that's what I have for you. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Spider, and I'll see you next time.